Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben, and a good morning to everybody. We warmly welcome you to yet another session in this AKBF management series. Thank you, Auntie Spe, for leading us in that prayer. And thank you, Ben, for leading us through this time of prayer. It has been really enriching. This to have a person with a very rich CV. He is a leader in so many ways, not only in his personal life, but in this nation as well. We are privileged to welcome Honorable Dr. Benson Obua Ogwal to speak to us this morning. Honorable Ogwal is a John Maxwell team coach. He is a speaker and a teacher. He has been involved in active elective politics in Uganda. And if you recall, he was a member of both the 8th and 9th Parliament of Uganda, representing Moroto County, Alebtong. At that time, he was also a shadow cabinet minister for ICT and later the East African Community Affairs. He has held many positions, both at parliamentary level. He has been a Secretary General of the African Parliamentarians as a member of many sessional, standing and select committees of Parliament. Honorable Obua Ogwal also is the CEO of North Star Publishers and a board member of many organizations and businesses. And he has also chaired many of these boards. A full-time he was as head of follow-up at the Commission of Inquiry into Land Matters. If you remember, that was called the Bamugemerere Commission at that time. Dr. Ogwal has also studied and right from Chambogo University, where he gained a diploma in education, Makerere University, he got a degree in political science and social administration. He went on to do a bachelor's of master's degree in international affairs in Ghana, at the University of Ghana. He has held several responsibilities as he went along the path of his studies. He later was, in 2019, he was awarded an honorary doctorate degree in humanities by the US-based Zoe Life Theological College because of his exemplary leadership and service to humanity. Dr. Ogwal has also gone through the Institute of National Transformation, and his passion right now is mentoring the next generation of leaders. He is actively engaged in many other continuing studies, and Benson is married to Oxide Agnes, and they are blessed with 3 children, Betty, Isaac, and Jemima. Honorable Benson, we warmly welcome you today, and please speak to us about conflict at the work, managing conflict at the workplace. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Patricia. It's such a privilege this morning to be with you all on this call. I've been following this most of the time, not live, but I endeavored to listen to every presentation that is given here. And so this morning, I feel so privileged that I should share with you on this very important topic, managing conflict at the workplace. I would like to delve straight away into the topic. And I felt that it's important to elaborately right here. Okay. Yeah. But before I go on, let me first give an overview of how this presentation is going to span out. We're going to first look at the definitions of this term conflict, because a lot of times you think you know a word, but when you delve deeper into the study of it, you'll find that you'll understand it better. Then we'll see some key principles from the Bible, which talks about conflict and especially how to resolve conflicts and what causes conflicts, the types of conflicts. And then we'll also look at the effects of conflicts, most especially in organizations, because we are dealing with management and management of organizations specifically. Then we will look at some few testimonies coming from my interactions in different spaces, as much as time will permit, and then we will conclude. Otherwise, let me now roll on. So let's look at some definitions of the word conflict. I just picked really ordinary dictionary definitions, and the first one is from Webster. And it talks of conflict being a fight. In fact, whenever you mention conflict, you imagine a fight already. You imagine a battle, you imagine war. But the second definition says it is a competitive or opposing action of incompatibles, antagonistic state of or action as of divergent interests, ideas, or persons. So it can be ideas, it can be divergence between persons. The second definition from Webster says it's a mental struggle, a mental struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands. So that is Webster. How about Cambridge Dictionary? It says it's an active disagreement between people with opposing opinions or principles. It's quite similar to the previous one, but brings in some other dimensions, opinions and principles. And there are some examples of usages of the word conflict, which may not be very important at this point in time. And then Collins Dictionary says conflict is a serious disagreement or argument about something important. So it has to be something important, not just anything. So if two people groups are in conflict, they have had a serious disagreement or argument, and they have failed to reach an agreement. So it continues. Conflict is a state of mind in which you find it impossible to make a decision. It results in inertia. In other words, a conflict is a serious difference between I've seen what's already happening in the UK. As soon as the Prime Minister came into office, pictures started flying around how he was paying allegiance to his God at the entrance of number 10, although now it is believed that that was when he was still the finance minister, but it's still the same. So his beliefs is beginning to cause conflict, and you have seen a lot of words that are flying around regarding that. Let's look at some biblical principles regarding conflict. And I'll delve straight into one scripture from the Bible, which depicts what conflict is like. You know, it doesn't have to be a physical fight or a heated argument, or, you know, but a disagreement that causes people to go different or divergent ways. For instance, in Acts chapter 13, verse 42 to 46, we see here how Paul and Barnabas witnessed a disagreement. They had really preached, and people were converted and excited. Then the following Sunday, a disagreement broke out between Jews and non-Jews, where the Jews thought non-Jews were not fit to receive the gospel, and that resulted into a terrible disagreement, which resulted into Paul and Barnabas, you know, quitting the city and leaving them to their mischief. You know, that's what conflict can do. It can truncate something good. You know, if you read in verse 45, but when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy, and contradicting and blaspheming, they opposed the things Paul had spoken. See, so just because they were seeing non-Jews, you know, those whom they were calling proselytes, were also benefiting from the gospel, they thought that was really terrible. So they decided to throw away the gospel. That is what conflict can do. And in Amos 3:33, we have always read this and quoted it, and it says, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" There is a sense in which failure to agree is already tantamount to conflict. And as Christians, we need to really think about this seriously, because we often agree to disagree, and sometimes we disagree disagreeably over things which we should just embrace each other about and agree to move on. You know, I've used a lot of pun there, but I believe you get me. So Amos 3:3 is talking about that. Unless we agree, we have disagreed. And that's already a kind of conflict. In Luke 11, verse 17, it says, "But he," meaning Jesus, brought to desolation, and the house divided against a house falls. You know, that's self-explanatory. That's a state of conflict. If there's a disagreement within a kingdom, let's talk of even a country, let's talk of an organization, even between two people, if there is a terrible disagreement, there is nothing that you can do which is worthwhile, and that can certainly, you know, bring a downfall of an organization. In Ecclesiastes, there's this very popular quotation, or rather verses, that we like reading, and I think it is very important that I also bring it here. Ecclesiastes 4:9 to 12, and it says, "Two are better than one." That's unity again, because they have a good reward for their labor. There's unity in strength. In my part of the country, in Lango, we say "note ente." In unity, there is strength. It's actually a motto of the cooperative union called Lango Cooperative Union. Verse 10 says, "For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. That's talking about synergy. Once we are together, you fall and somebody picks you up. But once we are not, working with companions, once we are doing things alone, all by ourselves, we are prone to be marketplace. We need to synergize so that we can move together as one and create the impact that the Lord wants us to create. In verse 11, it says, again, if two lie together, down together, they will be warm. That's symbiosis. You give and you receive because of that togetherness. But how can one be warm alone? Those who have lived in the zones where there's winter, they know what I'm talking about, can be terribly cold. But if you're two, there's that sharing of warmth. That is at a physical sense, but really it's also saying, if we are together helping each other, physical needs, emotional needs, and so on and so forth, we will really, really achieve much more. As they say, together everyone achieves more. That is the acronym that stands for team. Verse 12 says, though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him. That is leverage. If you're two, a load which is too heavy for one, two can just easily lift that load rather. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. This is self-explanatory. In Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 to 9, we read of the story of the Tower of Babel. When man decided that let's build a tower that will reach heaven, and see what's happening there. I will take interest in verse 4, which says, and they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. While unity is good, this is being exemplified here that you need to be united around good purposes, around good things. Otherwise, your unity can become a destructive unity. Unity of purpose is very important, which purpose must be aligned to the purpose of God. To these people, they wanted to build a tower. I don't think God was against the building of a tower, like skyscrapers, as we call them today. But what was the purpose for these people? They wanted to make a name for themselves. It is thought that they wanted to reach, they were challenging God. Who is this God who claims he's there? Let's go and see where he is. So that is where God then decided that no, these people are up to something. And God therefore did exactly what they were fearing. God decided to scatter them all over the earth and, mixed up their language. You can go back a little and see. Now the whole earth had one language. That language is a source of unity. If you can speak one language, and I'm not talking of the dialects, the tribal dialects that we have. One language here means speaking about the same thing with commonness of purpose, one speech, saying the same thing. Speak the same language, but what do we see? You find one ministry fighting the other, one umbrella body is against the other, and instead of preaching the gospel, there's a lot of quarrel, that does not please God. That does not please God. And therefore, these are the kinds of conflicts that we are talking about, which undermines the work of God. We need to be united. In Matthew, and this is the crux of the scripture that I want to dwell on a bit and then proceed. Here it says, Matthew 18:15-20 says, moreover, if your brother sins against you, that there sins against you is already conflict. Okay, it says, if your brother sins against you, what do? You should go and tell your brother his fault. Don't start by biting your brother and maligning him and talking ill of him. That is not how you solve conflict. Jesus is telling us that if he hears you, you have gained a brother, you have gained your brother back, So that one-on-one approach is very important. In verse 16, it says, but if he will not hear, take with you one or more, meaning brothers, that by the word of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word may be established. Every word may be established. There's power in doing this, because then this person will realize that is with you. But in verse 17, it further says, and if he refuses to hear them, meaning those brothers that you've taken, tell it to the church. Where this church here is not talking about going in front at the pulpit and shouting things out. It means going to leadership in church, or in our case, the organizations where we work, the workplace, going to those that are overseers in those places, those who are leaders in those places, and talking about these things to them. And if such a person still refuses, to hear from the church, from the executive director, from the leadership of the organization, then let it be to you like a heathen and a tax collector. In those days, tax collectors were not very popular people. It's not like our Uganda Revenue Authority of today. But tax collectors were ruthless. They were cheats. They were thieves. So they were considered to be, the lowliest people who had no hearts. The heathen were people who do not know God, so they were as good as worthless. And so if you are to be treated like that, then you have become really, really a non-entity for that matter. So this is what the Bible is telling us, that once somebody is now incorrigible, you let either he's sacked, or if you feel that it is too much for you to continue being with this person at the same place, then you possibly have to consider resignation. This is an implication in organizational terms. Otherwise, such an environment will have already become very, very toxic. It continues, assuredly, I say to you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Remember this following from the fact that you've done everything to make sure that the relationship between you and your brother is good. And if you succeed in doing that, this is what the Bible is telling us assuredly. Whatever you bind on earth will also be bound in heaven. And Jesus continues and says, again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. Imagine what kind of assurance comes with just the simple act of being in harmony, avoiding conflict, and acting as one, speaking the same thing and praying to God the Father as one. There's so much power in it, so much power in it. And the Bible is telling us it opens heavens for us. And this is not something too difficult to do, brethren. And there is a very difficult teaching about conflict management that Jesus talks about in Matthew chapter 5, verse 38 to 41. It says, have you heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth? But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him too. Man, this is a tough one. Just imagine somebody just slapping you, pow. You're just supposed to turn the other cheek and let him administer another one. It's tough. But I don't think this verse is urging us to lay on the floor and allow ourselves to be walked over. No, it's just saying that if you are wrongfully treated and you know you cannot help it, don't fight back in a way that that is ungodly. You, in other words, should forgive. This teaching was very, very prominent in Ravi Zacharias' teachings. I believe most of you have come across the late Ravi Zacharias, a Christian apologist, very popular, used to speak to multitudes of people. And he narrates this story where one day, after a very powerful rendition of his apologetics, and he was teaching on this subject, then somebody, an Arab, walked from the audience to him like he was coming to say something. Then he slapped him terribly. Then Ravi Zacharias just stood there and wondered, and then he remembered this teaching, but he asked the person, why did you do this? And the person said, now I believe that you believe what you're teaching. I was testing, what you've just taught about turning the other cheek, because that's what Jesus teaches. And actually the man, I'm told, later on became born again, the man who slapped Ravi Zacharias. So paying evil for evil is wrong, but paying good for evil is what Jesus urges us to do. I want to quickly look at some types of conflicts and also what causes conflict. I see.
Honorable Benson,
yes, please.
We have a few instances when you keep breaking, and so we lose a few things.
Yes.
Is it perhaps better to turn off the video?
Okay, that's okay. Okay, yes. I can do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me do that. Okay. Is it better?
Yes. Okay. Well, it just keeps breaking as you go along. So.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay. Unfortunate. I don't know whether it has something to do with my network. There are three types of conflicts at the workplace that we can think of. The first one being conflicts that are task-oriented, okay? And then there's those ones that are relational, it counts because of bad blood between two people or two groups of people. And then there's another type, which is related to values, where values clash. Somebody is taking bribes and it goes against the grain of most of actually it should go against our grain if somebody is corrupt as Christians. So those are already value conflicts, and if you find yourself in such a situation, it becomes a big challenge.
Sorry, Honorable Benson.
Yes, please.
I'm coming back to you. So when we lost you, we lost the slides.
Oh, you did? Okay. So what do I do?
Yes. So I.
Okay. Let me see what I can do very quick. Can you give me just 1 minute?
Yes, sure. Minute. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I will get out of this. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Just a second. I'm trying to. Okay. Just 1 second. I was here. Okay.
Okay. If it's difficult, we can go ahead with how you were doing it before.
Okay, I am coming now shortly. I'm now going to share my screen, and it should work better, I believe.
Thank you.
If not, I will go back to what I was doing before.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this seems not to be working well. Let me go back just.
That's fine, yes.
Okay, it seems not to be working well. Okay. Are you seeing my screen now?
Not yet.
Okay. You should be seeing it now.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's try to see what we can do. with this. Okay, so as I was saying, there are three types of conflicts at the workplace, and I've already talked about it. And so let's talk about the causes, and I'm going to quickly run through them, seeing that the time allotted is really fast running. There are so many causes of conflicts in the workplace. Some of them emanate from unclear job roles or rules, for that matter. Some of them are just because of poor management, where the manager does not know exactly what to do. Some has to do with unfair treatment and favoritism, where people are not treated equally. And some are just because of inadequate training and gross incompetence. All this brings conflict in an organization, and it brings undermining. The poor communication is the biggest one. If there is a poor communication flow, there is bound to be problem in an organization. And then poor work is favored over the others. Then there's bullying and harassment, where especially ladies are harassed at their workplaces, even sexually. And when there are sudden changes in what the organization knows how to do, and then something new is being introduced and it's frustrating everybody, and because there's poor communication and things are so drastic, people get stressed. And then when there's no clear organizational charts, there's no flow of authority where so and so is responsible for this and that, it becomes a challenge in an organization. And then where there's an opaque system of appraisals and payment, somebody was employed just yesterday, and from nowhere, without any justification, they're earning twice the other person's pay. That in itself can also bring a lot of strife, and they happen a lot in our society. Then there is also personality clashes, where Irene talked so well about it the other day, where people with different personalities do not seem to go along very well, and because they don't understand each other, it escalates into big fights and conflict, and also just somebody having a very big ego and does not want to be corrected, does not want to accept, to follow certain norms, So those are very, very many reasons, but there could even be more of why we have conflicts in organizations. I'm running because I know my time is also running. And then we also have to talk briefly about how to deal with these conflicts in organizations. There are biblical ways of handling conflicts, like I've already stated, exemplified in the book of Matthew. But in a practical way, one has to deal with conflicts in a way which does not exacerbate these conflicts, because there are some people in the process of trying to solve a conflict, they instead fans the fire. How do you do this? You need to have a one-on-one conversation with the employees, and one has to be empathic about this and also be sensitive about it. And also one has to listen to such an employee, and listening is a skill. And many people do not know how to listen, but one has to listen carefully and feel the person they're talking to, the employee. Ask the employees calmly to understand any underlying problems that they may not have, understood themselves. Some people have problems with others, yet the real problem is them. Then they make a whole fuss about it. Then you have to consider problems from a variety of perspectives. Don't just look at one point, one side only. As somebody who is solving it, be broad-minded and have employees to do as you say, not as you do. There you create more conflict amongst people, because they will keep saying, but you yourself, you're not doing it, and then you have to also comply with laws of the land concerning different aspects of issue, things that come up as conflict. There are reasons where we have lawyers. Lawyers are there to help us, and the more lawyers we have, the more litigious the country becomes, because they need a job, but they're there to help, and we need to look at them that way. But there's a way we can do things right by following the laws that are already established, and then we have to update ourselves on policies, on dispute resolutions procedures. We have to read, we have to study them, and help our employees to live by those. And where possible, and that's what the Bible was actually telling us about, we need to use mediation to sort issues between employees. If they cannot solve their own problems and they have come to you, you have to be the mediator. You have to help them see things better and be able to do the right thing. There are many effects of conflicts to an organization or at a workplace. It leads to diminished work performance. People begin to perform below what they expected, and that can eventually cause the organization a huge problem. Eventually, the organization can collapse, and then poor communication can result, and of course, the misunderstandings can result if there's conflict. Because, okay, first of all, poor communication can cause conflict, but conflict can also bring poor communications and misunderstanding. And of course, it makes the whole environment very toxic. You don't enjoy waking up on Monday to go to a workplace where from the parking lot, your spirit is just going to continue sinking the whole day. And then it is going to be like that from Monday to Friday. You don't want to be in such a place. And that's what conflict does. It creates a very toxic environment. And let me now try to quickly share a few of my own testimonies. You heard in my introduction when they were introducing me that I worked in Ghana, and I was there for 5 years. But my memory, what stands out, the very first day that I went to office, they were really, really waiting for me because they wanted me to go and change signatories so that the office can access money. Christmas was around the corner. And this driver called Nanaji, my father's age mate at the time, I don't know whether he's still alive, was given to drive me to the bank to change the signatories. And I found myself my way into the bank. And when I did he had driven away. And I knew in Accra, I didn't know what to do. And so eventually I took a special hire, I mentioned the place, and I found myself back in office. By the time I reached office, I found hell had broken loose. My deputy secretary generals, they were three. Um, uh, I was a secretary general and I had 4 deputies, but one of them was not at station at the time. I found they were just about to sack this old man because apparently, I learned later, they were so fed up with him. He was so rude. He was so combative, and he was always fighting, everybody. So they felt that he had embarrassed them by treating the new Secretary General the way he did. But I said, no, you leave it to me. And after sitting with him one-on-one, I discovered that this man was merely frustrated. And he had taken to heavy drinking because at home, there was no money, and the wife is always harassing him. His children are not going to school, so there was nothing he could do. He was always just trying to play lottery to win some money, and it just continued to make him more desperate. And so I decided that I will handle him personally. So I pleaded with my colleagues not to sack him because that would just worsen matters. And I told him that I wanted to meet him every day and he should stop drinking. I gave him some money myself. And I told him that if that is the major problem, money, is it possible for clothes? And he started dressing so smartly, including shoes. And within 2 months, when we gave him the money, he reported improvement and he was so happy, and he started putting on weight, and he started calling me father. This is somebody who's older than my father. And that was one way that I solved a very serious conflict that had already really grown out of proportion. And it's a pity that when I left, the organization slumped back to that status. And he actually went back to drinking. And I remembered one time I visited Ghana during Christmas, and we met, and he was crying like a baby and saying if I had not left, things would be different for him. So that is what it means to solve conflict in an office. Still in the same place, I had conflict with my own, one of my own deputy secretary generals, who was a Ghanaian. He was doing something very wrong. And as Secretary General, I had to put my feet down and said, no, you can't be doing this. And it was a very, very bad thing. I don't want to go into details, but this is somebody who decided to go native and threatened that he was going to cause my deportation. He was going to make me be declared a persona non a country when the government declares you a persona non grata, you're not wanted. And he had a high-ranking police brother, at a very senior level, like Assistant Inspector General. So I had to ponder over this, and then so I had to calm down, but I still insisted he did something wrong. And I talked to a few people who talked to him, and he saw the point, and we reconciled. And to date, we are still friends. We communicate. He's now a high-ranking person in his party in Ghana. And that was another conflict at the workplace that solved, involving me, myself, and my colleague, senior colleague. And then also there's another time when I was working, you heard that I was at the Commission of Inquiry. There used to be a lot of things going on. And those of you who know the Lady Justice Catherine Bamogemerere, no nonsense person who don't hear of something and just let it pass. And I was one of her trusted people. And so when something terrible happened, a lady was summarily dismissed. But her friend, who to me was innocent, was saved. So we pleaded, and so she was subjected to a disciplinary committee. And unfortunately, it was me who had to chair that disciplinary committee. And it had already caused a lot of bad blood. Because her friend was sacked, she had already concluded that she will also be sacked, whatever happened. And this is a believer. And however much we tried to tell her, we are not going to let this happen to you, she concluded that she was going to be sacked. Now, this conflict grew, but we still had to, try our best. And she did not believe when, after we sat, we recommended that she be retained. Of course, there were some penalties here and there which she faced, including reducing her salary a bit. But eventually, she became so happy and she worked so hard. And up to now, we are still in touch. She calls me just to appreciate me, how we saved her, because that was her only job at that point. And to sack her, I don't know where she would have gone. So that's another conflict resolved there. And then also another time, I was working with UNICEF as a consultant, doing a very specific thing. And during my tenure, my boss made it so difficult for me. She would shout at me, and not only me, even my immediate boss, who reported directly to her. I also reported to her, but sometimes through my immediate supervisor. For no apparent reason, she would really scold us, and publicly, UNICEF has this open plan office where it is just separated by boards halfway, and you see what's happening all over. And she would shout, and everybody used to sympathize with us every day. You don't want to go to work. Even said anything before I'd even gone to her to report. She started shouting at me, and something in me said, today you have to confront the bully. I got up and I told her off, and I said I was ready to leave the job there and then, because this is not how you treat people. And if I've done anything wrong, just point it. But you cannot dismiss everything that everybody is doing. And she was doing it to many people, and yet she was the head of a very, very big department. Long story short, she calmed down, lowered her tone, because I had also decided to raise my tone, and everybody was now raising their eyes to see what's going to happen next. And I had already made up my mind to even do the unthinkable if she continued. She calmed down, told me to sit down, and started pleading. And from that day, she respected me. And everybody was so happy that I did such a thing, because from that point, actually, everybody else started benefiting from her change of attitude, So that is another way you deal with with a conflict in an office setting. If you allow evil to persist, there comes a time when you cannot control it anymore. So you need to confront it at some point. Despite the fact that Jesus said, turn the other cheek, there comes a time when you need to stand up Okay, so we are coming to the end of my presentation, and I want to just wherever there are two or more people together, whether working or just living together, conflict is always inevitable. They will come. But the important thing is, how do you handle conflicts? Starting from the family setting all the way to organizations, even at the country level, at the national level. And somebody said something very interesting here to buttress the point I've just made. He said, without conflict, there can be no trust. Conflict exists to show us who is there for us unconditionally and who is just there for the benefits. That is Mark Manson. And I've experienced this. Some of the people that I conflicted with most, they eventually became my best friends. I don't know how it happens, but I persist in trying to make peace until the other person changes. And, you know, one of my best friends, we disagreed so bitterly one time that we thought we would never be friends. And instead, much later, we became best friends. So this can happen, but conflicts is not 100% bad. It can help to point things in the right direction, you know. And the challenge is that when it is left unmanaged or uncontrolled, it can then ruin an organization, it can ruin a marriage, it can ruin a country. And this is something that we need to really think about and take note of. Conflicts must be managed and controlled. You know, then people can see the difference that we make, that we make. And so this is where my presentation ends. And I want to thank you. Back to you, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Honorable Benson. This is such an eye-opener. Managing conflict in the workplace is, it's one of those subjects where you don't want to get involved in. And yet, like you said, we live with people, we sit with people every day, we talk to people every day. So we must learn to manage conflict. Thank you for those nuggets of wisdom. Yes, I think conflict must be managed with a lot of wisdom. Before I read a couple of comments and questions in the chat room, I just wanted to make a few announcements, actually 2 announcements. One is on the issue of supporting the ministry. We thank you so much, those people who have been able to support us, to support the ministry, to give in one way or another. And we want to request and appeal to you to continue to support as the Lord leads you, because it's that kind of support. We need financial support that keeps the ministry running. We have mobile numbers that you can send your financial support through, and we also have bank accounts. So please just get in touch with the Secretariat in case you need to support financially. The other announcement is on the issue of engagement with our team. We have both WhatsApp and Telegram groups. So if you are able to join any, please, and be part of the discussions, we would highly welcome you. We don't have much time left, but I just want to bring a few questions, Honorable Benson, to you. I hope you can answer them in the next 3 minutes. First of all, people are appreciative for the time you've spent and the presentation you've made. Some are requesting for another session on conflict management. And people are thanking for people are happy with the personal testimonies. Actually, somebody is requesting that, can you please write those testimonies down and share them with us, because you kept breaking, and so we missed a bit of the testimonies, and yet they were very, very encouraging. Somebody says that confrontation versus confrontation, may God give us wisdom. I have seen it work in a number of times. I think that was when you are confronting the bully, your testimony on confronting the bully. There's a question here from Esther Ruth. She says, how can the church leadership be helped to reduce conflict, that is the infighting in brackets, that affects us, the led, where, for example, two leaders can't see eye to eye, and this becomes a prayer request in quotes or a sermon. I think somebody also had missed the 3 types of conflicts, but yeah, Anita mentioned that: task, relational, and value. So Dr. Obua, are you able to answer that question from Esther Ruth? How can the church leadership be helped to reduce conflict that affects us, the led?
I think, first of all, thank you. And I really apologize that my thing kept breaking. PowerPoint itself in a more elaborate way and share, apart from sharing the PowerPoints itself. But going back to the problem.
Oops, you're breaking again, Honorable Benson. I don't know if we've lost Honorable Benson.
Can you hear me? I'm back.
Okay, yeah, we lost you. We lost you when you are beginning to respond.
Yes, I noticed. Sorry about that. I don't know. That's to do with my network, I think. So I was saying that I think the challenge we're having is something that I already talked about in a way, that egos tend to take the better of most of our leaders in church, and most of them are themselves people who rose without going through the leadership process. And I would just say that I wish they could be humble enough to reach out and be taught. There are very many programs around on leadership. And I do pray that such leaders would take advantage of them. Unfortunately, some of them feel too big to go and and a lot of them do come, but I don't know whether they really benefit. Otherwise, we just need to pray for them, and we shouldn't assume that they know it. If there's a way you can reach out to your leaders in church, you need to reach out to them and talk to them in a nice way. Some of them are actually yearning to be pastored, but there's nobody pastoring them. A pastor also needs a pastor. Who do they answer to? Who do they submit to? These are very important questions. But a lot of them have also gone into ministry without the call, and so they do not know what they're doing. So briefly, that's what I can say. But they need help in as much as they're trying to help others. They themselves need help. Thank you, okay. Patricia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I would like to mention that this conversation can continue on the chat room. I think Honorable Benson, you're going to be included on the current AKBF management chat so that you can continue to take questions throughout the day. In the next 1 minute, is there anything wrong with maintaining peace with others by letting go of some conflict situations, as in ignoring and moving on from the issue? Is that even an option? That comes from Caroline. Honorable Benson?
Yes. Hello? Yes,
Did you
please.
hear the question?
Not quite.
Did you hear the question? Okay.
Not quite.
Caroline is asking. Yes. Caroline is asking that, is there anything wrong with maintaining peace with others by letting go of some conflict, as in ignoring and moving on from the issue? Is that an option, to just ignore and move on?
Yes. That's what Jesus actually was implying, that when you've tried and you failed with somebody, you should just start treating them as if they are tax collectors or heathens. That's one way of ignoring. There are some things that you don't push. I am that type actually who, when I'm overly wrong, I can decide to ignore the problem. The challenge is that the people that you ignore sometimes become even more problematic, because sometimes they're provoking you on purpose and want you to respond. So it annoys them even more, which to me actually is also good to ignore them so that they get more angry. But there comes a point in time where it has to stop, when it becomes too persistent and they become an irritant. That's where you need to square up. How long can you live with the same nagging, same problem every day? So that's my response to that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Honorable Benson. We are so privileged to have you talk to us this morning. We would like to request you to join the chat and continue the conversation. There are very many questions coming in, and some people really want certain questions answered on conflict management. So let's go to the chat, and let's keep Honorable Benson busy today with answering all questions, conflict management. I would like to bring this meeting to a close.
Send the link to me on WhatsApp, because you can't just add me. I need to join myself.
Thank you very much. We are going to do that shortly. And also, we would like to request you to share your presentation. There are people who would like to access it.
I will.
So thank you people for all your requests. Thank you so much, Dr. Honorable Benson. It's been really empowering. And as we conclude this meeting, can we all please unmute and say the grace together? May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Spirit
be with us all, now and forevermore.
Amen. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody, for joining us on the chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the good words.
Thank you,
them now.
Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you.